when you're dealing with a module 2 essay, remember you're looking at the language used, how it is used to bring across a point, and you're going to have to talk about technology as well. That's usually the third question. It's always, or usually most times, it's about how technology can be used to enhance the piece. So here's our extract. The first thing I would advise is reading the questions. After reading the questions, then go through and read the extract and find out the little points that you want to use. So for this, we are required to find 3 dialectal variations, 3 communicative behaviors, and 4 ways in which Edward's contempt for his homeland could be dramatized in a video presentation. So basically how it would look. All right, so let's go back up. We're going to read through and see what we can get, right? So we're looking for dialectal variations first. If you're more comfortable doing that, if you can't look for both at the same time, I would advise reading once, looking for the first part, which are your dialectal variations, then reading a second time to go through and find the communicative behaviors used by Edward, right? So read the extract below carefully and then answer the questions that follow. Edward didn't give up painting, but he no longer offered to paint things for us. And I think most people were relieved. He entered some poster competition, and when his design didn't win even a consolation prize, he grew really angry with Trinidad. One Sunday he said, "I was stupid to send in anything I paint with my own 2 hands for Trinidad people to judge. What they know about anything. No, if I was in America, it would have been different. The Americans is people. They know about things." To hear Edward talk, you felt that America was a gigantic country inhabited by giants. They lived in enormous houses and they drove in the biggest cars of the world. Edward used to say, "Look at Miguel Street. In America, you think they have streets so narrow? In America, this street could pass for a sidewalk." One night, I walked down with Edward to Dockside in the American Army camp. Through the barbed wire, they could see the huge screen of an open-air cinema. Edward said, "You see the sort of theater they come and build in a stupid little place like Trinidad? Imagine the sort of thing they have in the States." And we walked down a little further until we came to a sentry in his box. Edward used his best American accent and said, "What's cooking, Joe?" To my surprise, the sentry, looking fierce under his helmet, replied, and in no time at all, Edward and the sentry were talking away, each trying to use more swear words than the other. When Edward came back to Miguel Street, he began swaggering along and he said to me, tell them how good I does get on with the Americans." And when he was with Hat, he said, was talking the other night with an American. Should be an American. Was talking the other night with an American, good friend. And he was telling me that as soon as the Americans were enter the war go end. Ooh, I really struggled with that one. So I was talking the other night with an American, good friend. He was telling me that as soon as the Americans enter the war go end. Going to end. Okay. So it was adapted from V.S. Naipaul's Miguel Street. So dialectal variations. Now, usually when people see Creole, they usually talk about Creole, and then they go on to say that we're talking about the baselect, mesolect, and acrylic, right? Now, in the previous video about how to write the Module 2 essay, I actually mentioned this as a very common mistake for students, where they speak about the baselect, mesolect, and acrylect as separate dialectal variations. But rather, that's not true. The baselect, mesolect, and acrylect, Creole, Caribbean Creole, right? So we call it a continuum because the baselect, the mesolect, and acrylect speaks about the degree or the range of Creole that a given person speaks, right? So usually the baselect is like the complete Creole, straight patois, and mesolect is like the in-between, meso meaning middle. And the acrylect, right, would be of the highest standard. So that's standard English, right? Not standard English, but rather it's the best of the Creole ranges. So it's a continuum. So the whole thing is Creole. So that's whenever you go ahead and you speak about Creole and then you go ahead and talk about the baselect, the mesolect, and acrylect, in fact, you've only spoken about one dialectal variation. So throughout this piece, we have Creole, of course. We can see the use of standard English. The whole thing, not the whole thing, but yeah, the narration portion of the story the story is narrated in standard English. And there is also American English, where he said, "What's cooking, Joe?" Said it in his best American accent. So what's cooking, Joe? Right? And also we saw the use of profane English. So you have quite a few to talk about, right? But they only want you to speak about 3. So as usual, after going through and I've identified some points that I could speak about, I always choose the best ones for me, the ones I know that I can explain, and of course would make my essay interesting. So being me, me, definitely going to talk about that profanity. Going to talk about profane English. I mean, standard English has something to talk about. The narration is done in standard English, and I can tell you why it's done in standard English. And of course, of course, Creole. I can talk about that too, but I ain't gonna mention about the continuum because it's not that necessary for me, I think. But if you have something to say about it, you can go right ahead, right? It's completely fine. Remember, these essays are unique to you. So I've identified what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about Creole. I'm going to talk about profane English. And of course, I'm going to talk about standard English. And now for the communicative behaviors, I think Stephen said communicative behaviors displayed specifically by Edward. So let's go through. The communicative behaviors are vocalics, or paralanguage. So I'm listing them before I look for them, because when you don't know what you're looking for, then it's kind of hard to find it. So list them first. So paralanguage or vocalics, kinesics, artifacts, proxemics, and there's one more, chronemics. All right, I definitely don't know if I'm going to find anything about chronemics, so I know I'm not talking about that. Proxemics, if I was really desperate, I would make up something with regards to the century box, but let's not. So the 3 that I'm going to talk about are vocalics, his tone, right? Because he really been bashing Trinidad, not gonna lie. He really been bashing Trinidad in this whole thing. But sometimes, you just have to understand certain things. Like, it's a competition, you're going up against people. So not always going to go your way. Kinesics refers to body languages, gestures, and such. So right here, swaggering, going to use that for kinesics. And for artifacts, To be honest, I think when I was doing the draft for this essay, I did a little stretch with the artifacts, but I think it's a solid point. So I'm going to go with artifacts as well and use it or speak about his paintings being an artifact, right? And when I'm writing the essay, I'll explain a bit more about why I chose paintings as the artifact. I mean, I could have found out and talk about proxemics. I could have talked about chronemics, and I needed three. I needed three communicative behaviors. So I'm sure about vocalics. I'm sure about kinesics. I wouldn't even say I'm not sure about artifacts. I'm pretty sure about it, but I wouldn't say it's my strongest point. So as usual, whenever I'm writing an essay, I write in the order second strongest point first, then I'll talk about my weakest point, and then I'll talk about my strongest point last. So I think I'm going to do this in the order of vocalics, then artifacts, I guess, and then kinesics. So that. As for the order in which I'll speak about the dialectal variations, I'm thinking standard English first, and I chose to go in the order in which it was like here, then make it interesting, shake it up with profanity. Shake it up with profanity. And then third, Creole. So that's the order. And as for the four ways in which I could have Edward show his discontent or contempt is facial expressions. I'm going to expound, of course. Second way, maybe gestures, maybe hand gestures, and I know where when he was talking about the size of the roads. So road size, just to keep my brain where it's supposed to be, so I don't have to wonder when I start writing this essay what I really meant. Okay, I'm going to mention proxemics here. Well, I don't know if I'm going to use the word proxemics specifically, but where he was standing and talking to the guard, talking to the guard. It was rather friendly. So that little friendship that he's trying to build between America and, well, the guard and himself would be, him trying to show his redirection of patriotism. That makes sense. So he's really fond of America right now, not such a big fan of Trinidad. So standing talking to the guard or sentry, I mean, that's the word they used. I guess I'll use it again, just use it. And a fourth one. I guess I'll re-mention swaggering since I said I would up top. So I want to make sure that my essay is cohesive. All the paragraphs connect with each other. So once I got that sorted, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have an intro. And then for my body paragraph, I'm going to talk about the 3 dialectal variations, then communicative behavior, and then I want my final paragraph or conclusion to deal with question C. So question C. All right, my introduction, I'm going to get that in 50 words. I don't need more than 50. So that leaves me with, it's a 500 word limit. That leaves me with 450 words to talk about all of this. So what I usually do, 450 divided by how many things do I have to talk about? 3 things here, 3 things here, and 1 here. So about 7 things I have to talk about. So I'll go divide that 450 by 7. Me doing math on a communication studies paper is wild. So I'll talk about dialectal variation, each dialectal variation in 60 words. So since it's 3 of them, 180 words. Each communicative behavior, I'll talk about that in 60 words as well. So that totals 180 as well. And 60 words for the final paragraph, question C. All right, so now that I've got that sorted, I'll go over to the place where I'll type. So just a quick recap. Quick recap of like my whole layout, my whole outline. So let me get a checkbox. So introduction, and I need that in 50 words. It's okay if you go a bit over or a bit below. So dialectal variation, I'll talk about that. And that whole thing is 180 words, which would be 60 for each. And each dialectal variation would be said standard Caribbean English. Boom, boom, boom. I said profane English as well. I'm talking about that one. And what was the last one? Caribbean Creole. I think that's all it. An A right here. So those are the 3 and the 60 words each. I mean, I could put the 60, but I know by now that it's 60. I don't usually forget like the word count. But if you will, you can. So remember, I do this on the rough paper. I did this on the rough paper that I got for my exam. Or you could even do it in the margins, because they ain't marking the margins. They even said, don't write in the margins, but I'm a bit delinquent, so I'll write in the margins if I feel like. I just don't write your answers in the margin because ain't nobody gonna see that. So yeah. For the communicative behaviors, again, that's going to be in about 180 words. Let me change this to British local because we use British English out here. That's going to be order, vocalics, right? That's what I said. Vocalics. And that's going to be his tone and choice of words. I just put a little note, tone and choice of words. That's exactly what I'm going to talk about. Then for the next one, I said artifacts. And I said the artifact would have been his paintings. And I talk about that in 60 words. And if it doesn't hold to the 60 words, that's fine. Just use it as a way to keep track. You know, if you go below the 60 words for a part, then you know that you have leeway to make up for words in another part, right? You can add more. But you know, if you go over, then you have to add less to the next paragraph, right? So it just gives you a little guide so you're aware of how many words you have, so you don't go too far over and you don't go too far below. And last, kinesics. And my trigger word here would be swaggering because yo. And that's going to be 60 words as well. And then finally, I'm going to talk about 4 ways, what did it say? In which this could be dramatized in a video presentation. So just think about it. Like, if you were going to make this into a movie, how would you direct it, right? So that's how I thought about it, visualized what I would like to see. It wasn't for humor, it was just to like, so I can know what it would be like visually. So in my introduction, I'm going to introduce the extract. And it also helps to have a bit of knowledge about things like this, like Caribbean novels and stuff. But if you don't, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to summarize what the extract was about in like 1 sentence. And then I'm going to tell you what my essay is going to discuss, which is my thesis statement. Right? So my trusty holding, my trusty holding here. So I need this the voice typing thing, because I don't want to be here typing away and chatting you out. Let's see how quick we can do this. So the extract was taken from V.S. Naipaul's novel McGill Street. So, bro. So V.S. Not Naples, but Nepal. Sometimes I wonder if it's my accent. But I don't even know what type of accent I have. Like, you can't hear your own accent. Well, you can hear it, but it don't sound like an accent to you. But bro, I think you get it though. So the extract was taken from V.S. Naipaul's novel McGill Street. Then I'm going to tell you what it is about. So maybe like this. It tells the story of a painter, Edward, who is bitter about Trinidad not giving him the recognition he believes he deserves. Painter, comma, Edward. I don't like long sentences, so I try to make them as short as possible. So I would have put named Edward. Painter, comma, Edward is grammatically correct, so why not? So it tells the story of a painter, Edward, who is bitter about Trinidad not giving him the recognition he believes he deserves, right? Making that clear. This essay discusses the different language varieties from the extract. It also explores the different communicative behaviors used by the main character, Edward. No, you might be saying, you never just said something about Edward a while ago, like Edward in this too much time. But I think it was necessary to just ensure that I stated that the main character's name is Edward, so that my reader will be following. So I think it was necessary. If you don't think it's necessary, you don't have to, right? It's up to personal preference. It's an essay. It's always unique to you. Everyone has their own writing style. So this is my introduction. And I know it looks a bit short, but remember, you have 500 words and you have a lot to discuss down below. So don't eat too much on your intro. So okay, I think I can do that. Display word count while typing. And it's 56 words, yeah? So let's go. Now I'm going to start, since I'm done with my introduction, I'm going to start with dialectal variations. And of course, always introduce what you're going to talk about first, right? Before going into your discussion. So I'm going to have just a short sentence or two stating that, say, firstly, the extract uses many dialectal variations. So right here, I have actually, I'm hinting to you that, not hinting to you, I'm definitely just telling you that I'm going to talk about dialectal variations. Like, there ain't no hiding behind it. Yeah, I'm just telling you. So now you know I'm talking about dialectal variations. And this is where the marker will decide, hey, you're giving me the points for that because they're correct, right? I'm telling you exactly what dialectal variations I'm going to talk about. So some of which are Caribbean English, profane English, and Caribbean Creole. I'm sure I did not say crew, but oh well. So Caribbean Creole. I'm going to put standard right here because I think it just sounds better. Standard Caribbean English. I need a comma right here for then profane English, then and Caribbean Creole, and we're good. We're good right there. Then I'm going to go ahead and start talking about standard Caribbean English, right? And the general structure is I tell you what I'm going to talk about, then I provide evidence from the piece, then I explain what that has to do with anything, right? So my explanation comes after my evidence. Sometimes I put explanation before evidence, but it depends on what I'm talking about. But for the most part, whenever I'm writing an essay, it's always that way. Topic, sentence, evidence, then explanation. The story is narrated using standard Caribbean English. Period. This allows the writer to separate the story from the dialogues. Period. The narration presents sound grammatical structure. Furthermore, it follows the basic rules of Caribbean Standard English. All right, so before I go any further, let me just clear up some stuff here. So I said that the story is narrated in using standard Caribbean English. This allows, and whatever that, I'm literally going to explain. I told you that sometimes I put a slight explanation before evidence. This allows the writer to separate the story from the dialogues. The narration presents sound grammatical structure. Furthermore, it follows, the basic rules of Caribbean Standard English. Now, the reason why I had put the this before the evidence is because when I wrote the essay first, when I put it after, it just never sound right. It just felt like it's supposed to come before, so I just did a quick swap. So yeah, then I'm going to present my evidence, right? And evidence can be presented in a lot of ways. You can actually tell me, just pick up a piece from it, like an entire word, or even what's that called? A word or even a sentence. So sorry, I got distracted a bit. So the evidence, I would say this is evident. So this is evident in the first line, and comma, in the first line, let's go right here. I'm using this, kind of forgot that. But in the first line, it says Edward didn't give up painting. So this is like an introduction. It's introducing us to the main character, the story itself, and what's going to come along, right? So Edward didn't give up painting. It's fine. It's still standard English. It follows the regular grammatical structure of standard English. So I said Edward didn't give up painting, and I chose that specifically because I want it to still sound like I'm introducing my piece or introducing my essay while introducing the extract itself. So I wanted it to flow like we're starting from the top and we're going down to the bottom. So that's why I chose the first line for my first dialectal variation piece of evidence. So Edward didn't give up painting, and I don't really need anything else. So I'll just stop right there for the evidence giving. I'm not going to type out the whole thing, right? And it's the same thing when writing an essay. You don't have to write out the whole sentence, just dot, 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 and you're good, right? So this introduces relevance. Relevance, that's what I'm talking about now. Why is that relevant? This introduces the narrative to the readers in a sophisticated manner. And it allows the readers to follow the events, gaining a clear understanding of the writer's perspective. And that's full stop right there. Events, comma, gaining a clear understanding of the writer's perspective. And that's all I have to say for Caribbean Standard English. And I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to just run into the profane English, right? So I said also the extract utilizes profane English. So tell a general setup, supposed to general setup, introduce what I'm going to talk about, then provide evidence, then speak about its relevance. So after saying that, said in lines 21 and 22, Edward says this word, good friend, right? And I don't need anything else from the sentence, right? I don't need anything else from the sentence. I just needed that part, to be honest. And I said describing the American. And I had to specify American because this story or the extract here is showing a big contrast between, hey, what he likes right now or who he likes right now versus who he doesn't like right now. He doesn't like Trinidad right now, but he really likes America for some reason. So, yeah, he spoke to at the sentry or sentry's box at the army camp, full stop, right? So Edward's use of the word, or did I? Yeah, I guess of the word in that sentence, right, showcases the use of a secular language. So I just did that. Right. I didn't want to use profanity. I didn't want to use curse words. I didn't want to use any of those. So I said secular language. And from there, I did a bit more explaining why I called it secular language. Many consider it a curse word frequently used in American culture and many others. So not consider it, but considers, many consider it, right? And then I think I would be done right there talking about profane English. And so I just go on to speak about Creole. And to do that, I said, finally, one sees the use of Caribbean Creole in Edward's speech. So this is, you'll see this predominantly where Edward is speaking. So anything that the narrator says that Edward said, it's in Creole, right? So after saying that, I said in the fourth line, I always tell the location, so it's very easy for my marker or my reader to find where I pulled the example from. So in the fourth line, Edward states, I was stupid to send anything I paint with my own two hands, right? Then that's my evidence. I'm going to speak about its relevance. The sentence neglects to mark the tense of the word paint while making reference to the past. So that is me telling you what I have to do with anything. So mark the tense of the word paint. And of course, I'm going to put paint in quotes so that it stands out, right? So he neglects to mark the tense of the word paint while making reference to the past. right? Just in case you weren't following what I'm saying, I'm going to follow up by saying, since the piece was already done, painted, saying painted instead of paint would have skewed the sentence closer to Caribbean Standard English. So that is my big bad explanation. So by saying painted instead of paint, what did I do? Bro, chill. So instead of saying painted, instead of paint, would have skewed the sentence closer to Caribbean Standard English, right? And that's my explanation. And so after that, I just said to wrap up this, throughout the extract, Edward's speech contains many other features of the Creole grammar. So that's just a hint that I know about what I'm talking about. So yeah, it's just a hint that I know what I'm talking about. So after that, I'm going to start a new paragraph. Like I was thinking, should I have just divided each dialectal variation into its own paragraph? But then when I looked at it, it was a bit short. Like paragraphs look too short, them look too stucky. So I just compounded everything, dialectal variation in one, and I'm going to speak about the communicative behaviors in another, and then conclude with questions. See, as I had, said I would, right? So I need a transition. So I said, besides dialectal variations, Edward uses communicative behaviors to carry across his message. So that's me again introducing what I'll talk about next, right? So besides dialectal variations, Edward uses communicative behaviors to carry across his message, full stop. And I'm going to list them. So these include, which ones? I told you I was going to talk about vocalics, right? Artifacts and kinesics. So that's that. Then I said, I'm going to start talking about vocalics right away. One sees vocalics via Edward's way of speaking. His choice of words allows the audience to intuitively deduce tone. And I missed a few full stops. So not volcanics, but vocalics. This is like a very one of the disadvantages of using this, but it's not a lot of words to correct, so I don't mind. So vocalics, one sees vocalics via Edward's apostrophe S way, right? Via Edward's way of speaking, and a big full stop right there, because I don't want to continue. I don't want to have that sentence being too long. So his choice of words allows the audience to intuitively deduce tone. And once we are able to deduce tone, what else did I say? I provided evidence. So evidently, in lines such as Americans is people, Americans is people. I know that's grammatically incorrect, should be are, but that's what he said. That's what he said. In America, this street would pass for a sidewalk. And to be honest, whenever I'm coming up with these, I try to ensure that I have recurring, like whenever I choose an example, it's like I've spoken about it in more than one way. So again, when I'm going to talk about the gestures, because I chose this, the size of the road, I'm going to show that gesture. Americans is people, that comes up in the same sentence that I started out with for the first paragraph, where said Edward, where is it? Edward didn't give up painting. After that introduction, this is some of what he said, right? So I'm ensuring that everything ties back together. So I have recurring evidence. They're stemming from the same piece or paragraph or same part of the extract. Let's say, put it like that. So in America, the street would pass for a sidewalk, comma, don't even, comma, bro. The street would pass for a sidewalk. His choice of words show scrutiny. Had me there for a second. For Trinidad, as opposed to praise for America. All right. And that's me talking about vocalics. So then I'm going to go ahead and talk about artifacts. So I said that, furthermore, Edward uses his paintings as an artifact. Right, so that's how I'm introducing the word artifact. It's with an E for British English. So Edward uses his paintings as an artifact, right? Then I'm going to state evidence. The extract mentions, comma, but he no longer offers, or offered rather, to paint things for us. Right? That's what the extract said. He no longer offered to paint things for us. Then I said, then I'm going to go now and basically explain the relevance. So Edward thinks very highly of his work. By refusing to contribute his paintings to Trinidad, it indicates or communicates the grudge that he holds. So it communicates the grudge that he holds. So GR, come on, G for this one. Capital B for by, so new sentence. By refusing to contribute his paintings to Trinidad, it communicates the grudge that he holds. I think this is a movie, that's why it's come up like this. The grudge that he holds. So yeah, that's me explaining artifacts. And that's all I had to say about artifacts. But I know I blabbed a bit up top about something else, so it was a bit lengthy. So it's okay that this part is short. So it shouldn't let me fall too much. I don't think I'll be below the 500 word count. I don't even remember the amount of words. I know I wasn't below. I'm really ever below the word count. I'm always a few words over. So, I'm going to talk about kinesics now, and then I'll go to the final paragraph where I'll talk about the 4 ways in which we can dramatize this. So, right here, in the piece, one is also able to see Edward's use of kinesics. One sees this when Edward returns to Miguel Street. Swaggering. So just like that, swaggering, right? And in quotes, this is my evidence. It's there in the extract. Said he was swaggering, right? But this time, as you can see, I did not use a whole sentence. I just used the one word because that would be enough. So for my marker to know what I'm talking about, right? So now relevance. The term swaggering indicates his pride in having been able to speak to the American. So that's what it communicates. And it should be his pride. I think I said his pride, but if I said its pride, I am terribly sorry. So the term swaggering indicates his pride in having been able to speak to the American. And reread while you're writing. Reread your paragraphs, reread your sentences before rereading the whole thing, because it's easier to spot a mistake in a smaller chunk of words or cluster of words than to check it, find the mistakes in a whole essay, especially when you're the one who wrote it. Proofreading it, you're going to correct it yourself in your head while reading it. So it's best to go over while writing, right? So after saying that, I believe I was done. So now I'll just go back up for a bit. So I spoke about dialectal variation. So 180 words twice, because I spoke about I had 180 word limit for communicative behavior as well, plus a 50, plus 50, bro, plus 50 for introduction. So that should total me about 410 words. So as I said, see, it's 482 right now. I'm a bit over, but let's see what I do with the four things, the four ways. The four ways I had a set of 50 or 60 word limit. 60 word limit, but let's see, I should have 500. So far I have 482. So that leaves me with an 18 word limit. Oh, no, sir. That's not right at all. I know what is the problem. I need to highlight just the part that I need. Don't disappoint. All right, so it's 440 words. All right, not bad. I have something to work with now. So 60 words. There you go. So 60 words to do the rest, right? So I just need 60 words to do the rest. So you see, I'm on point with my word count. So introducing, you need a transition. So with all said thus far, I like saying this. Sounds official. With all said thus far, there are ways in which Edward's contempt for his homeland could be dramatized. Dramatized with an S, please. Just do it with a Z. Bro. Edward apostrophe S, right? Common T for there. So with all said thus far, there are ways in which Edward's contempt for his homeland could be dramatized. So I just rewrote the question, to be honest. I do that. Like, keep telling you, just rewrite the question and you're good. So 4 ways in which Edward's contempt for his homeland could be dramatized in a video presentation. I mean, I didn't write video presentation because I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's necessary, right? So dramatized. And no, I'm going to talk about the first one. So I said, first, Edward could show his dissatisfaction by displaying facial expressions of discontent. So I'm going to give an example, like expound on what I mean. This could be by showing a frown or having scrunched eyebrows. So not phone, but rather frown. Rown, yeah. And also, while speaking to the guard, Edward can stand relatively close to the sentry box. And that's sentry with an S, or I could say guard's box. Standard. Can, could. Let's change can to could, since it's a suggestion. Edward could stand relatively close to the sentry box. And relevance, this is to indicate his comfort, for one, with the conversation, and comradeship, comrade, R-A-D, D-E-S-H-I-P, I think, yeah, between the two. Then I'll go on to tell you my next one, relevance, then my last one, relevance. So after that, while comparing the size of the Trinidadian roads to the American sidewalks, Edward may use hand gestures to portray size. While comparing the size of the Trinidadian roads to the American sidewalks, Edward may use hand gestures to portray size. And then, finally, Edward returns to Miguel Street, swaggering after speaking to the American. So in this case, we can portray that by, this is what I'm going to say. So Edward returns to Miguel Street, swaggering after speaking to the American. Again, I say this to actually bring my readers' focus back to the fact that loving, or here, in his case, his love, or should I say love? Well, his obsession still don't sound like the right word either. His interest in America right now seems to be love, and it's a form of discontent for his country. So, after speaking to the American, full stop, that could be represented by a high chest, confident walk, and broad smile. And I'm done. I wanted that to sound like a commercial at the end. I wanted it to sound a bit rhythmic. So that could be represented by a high chest, confident walk, and broad smile. Broad. Yeah. So that's the essay. Let me check the word count. But as I said, shouldn't be too much over the 500. Maybe a bit over, but not by a lot, I'm sure. So let's move down. Bro, start from the bottom up. Why this thing is scrolling, man? Oh, man. Okay. So I got 554 here. 554 words. Am I sure about this? Anyways, yeah, so that's what I have, 554 words. Now, what I'll do is go through and try to cut this down to about maybe 510, 520. So let's see if I can do that really quickly while I proofread and see what we have, right? So the extract was taken from V.S. Naipaul's novel Miguel Street. It tells the story of a painter, Edward, who is bitter about Trinidad not giving him the recognition that he believes he deserves. This essay discusses the different language varieties from the extract. It also explores, from the extract, and check out this, and explores the different communicative behaviors he uses. So I think that's fine. Firstly, the extract uses many dialectal variations, some of which are So instead of saying, okay, it's fine. Some of which are Caribbean, because I don't want to change it to they are, but rather just don't get too attached to your words when you're writing. It's fine to take out some, there's always going to be another essay. You can just use it again, use that word that you're so attached to, or that phrase that you're so attached to in another one, right? See, no need to like be, oh, I don't want to remove this one. You need to be brutal when editing your work. Just take them out. If it's not necessary, take it out. So some of which are Caribbean, standard Caribbean English, profane English, and Caribbean Creole. The story is narrated using standard Caribbean English. This allows readers to separate the story from the dialogues. Should I not? The narration presents sound grammatical structure and follows. So here and follows the basic. Okay, I don't. Oh, nice. I forgot that I can do them thing there, Structure, comma, following the basic rules of Caribbean Standard English. This is evident in the first line, Edward didn't give up painting. This introduces the narrative to the readers in a sophisticated manner, and it allows the readers to follow the events, gaining a clear understanding of the writer's perspective. Also, the extract utilizes profane English. In lines 21 and 22, Edward says, describing the American he spoke to at the Sentry's box. All right. I don't think at the army camp is all that necessary. I think you can do without it. Sentry's box. Edward's use of the word in the sentence showcases the use of secular language. Many consider it a curse word most frequently used. So instead of saying many consider it, let's just say it is a a curse word frequently used in American culture and many others. Finally, one sees the use of Caribbean Creole in Edward's speech. The fourth line, Edward states, I was stupid to send anything I paint with my own two hands. Sentence neglects to mark the tense of the word paint while making reference to the past. Since the piece, as in Piece, was already done, saying painted instead of paint would have skewed the sentence. Instead of would have, just say skews the sentence closer to the Caribbean Standard English. The extract Edward's speech contains many other. So instead of this, I could say just furthermore, therefore, hence, which one? Let's go for furthermore. Furthermore, Edward's speech contains many other features of Creole grammar. Besides dialectal variation, Edward uses communicative behaviors to carry across his message. These include vocalics, artifacts, and kinesics. One sees vocalics via Edward's way of speaking. His choice of words allow the audience to intuitively just deduce tone, intuitively in adding or subtracting to the sentence. I mean, if I miss it, you won't even know that it was there, right? So it's like a filler word, so I can't take it out since I'm over the word count. So allows the audience to deduce tone. Evidently, I don't need that. I can just say in lines, in lines such as Americans is people, and in America, this street would pass for a sidewalk. His choice of words shows scrutiny for Trinidad, as opposed to, all right, so as opposed to praise for America, I would just say while praising America, right? I think that's way less words, saying the same thing, way less words. So while praising America. Furthermore, Edward uses his paintings as an artifact. The extract mentions, but he no longer offered to paint things for us. Edward thinks very highly of his work. So yeah, filler sentence, don't need it. By refusing to contribute his paintings to Trinidad, it communicates the grudge that he holds. In the piece, one is also able to see Edward's use of kinesics. One sees this when Edward returns to Miguel Street swaggering. The term swaggering indicates, all right, so instead of the term swaggering indicates, I can just say duh, you know I'm talking about swaggering. So I'll just say this indicates his pride in having been able to speak to the American. With all said thus far, I don't want to take this out. I don't want to take this out. I don't want to take this out. All right, let's leave it for now, then check the word count. But I can say that in some way else, somewhere, some other way, which is shorter than that. So with all said thus far, there are ways in which Edward's contempt for his homeland could be dramatized. Something sound off with that sentence there, brother, but first, Edward should show could show his dissatisfaction by displaying facial expressions. I mean, if he's already dissatisfied, of course, it would be of discontent. So just take that out. This could be by showing a frown or having scrunched eyebrows. Also, while speaking to the guard, Edward also, while talking or speaking to the guard, Edward could stand relatively close to the sentry box. This is to indicate his comfort with the conversation and comradeship between the two. While comparing the size of the Trinidadian roads to the American sidewalks, Edward may use hand gestures to portray size. And finally, Edward returns to Miguel Street swaggering after speaking to the American. That could be represented by a high chest, confident walk, and broad smile. Let's check the word count. Hope I don't have to take out anything else. Why aren't you this thing here giving me issues? Scroll. Scroll. All right, 523, I'm leaving it right there. Yes. So that should be fine. Try not to go over 520 words. I know it's just 3 words over. If it were 5 words over, I'll take out some more, but you know what? I'll stick to what I'm saying. So with all said so far, so I could just say with that said, and it's fine. All right. Yeah, I fixed it. There you go. It's under 520. So yeah. If you're not sure, let me just check one more time, but I'm sure it's under 520. And while I check that, guys, remember it's marathon season. I'm still accepting registrations for the marathon. So you can look in the description box below for that. And remember, as usual, the essay is down below as well. So the link to this page here, a copy of this is down there. Let me just uncheck these. Just skip so you can scroll down. Skip so you can see the word count. So 521. All right, that's fine. 521 words. So yeah, that's it for now. Just look out for the module 3 essay, yeah?